Why galactic law forbids humans from fighting wars. The ruling is final. Humanity is forbidden from engaging in war under any circumstances. The words echoed through the Grand Tribunal chamber, broadcast across the galactic extranet. Billions of alien species, some watching in shock, others in relief, witnessed the most controversial ruling in interstellar history. The humans, those unpredictable deathworld-born creatures, had just been outlawed from warfare. Not by choice, not by treaty, but by universal decree. Ambassador Kex of the Vsari Confederation stood tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh tribunal lights. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction. It is for the safety of the galaxy that we take this measure, he continued, addressing the humans standing at the defendant's podium. We do not condemn you, but we recognize the truth. Your kind is too dangerous. The lead human representative, Admiral Elias Grant, merely smiled. It was the kind of smile that sent a chill down the spines of even the most hardened war strategists. Let me get this straight, he said, his voice calm but edged with something the tribunal couldn't quite place. You're banning us from fighting because you're afraid of what happens when we do? The tribunal members shifted uncomfortably. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the outer edge of the chamber, a transmission interrupted the proceedings. A distress signal. The kind that bypassed all diplomatic filters. The kind that meant the sender was utterly desperate. A holographic image flickered to life in the center of the tribunal. A Zalari warlord, his massive reptilian form drenched in blood, gasped for breath as his ship trembled violently. His compound eyes darted around wildly as explosions rocked his vessel. To anyone who can hear this, he coughed, blood dripping from his maw. The harbingers have arrived. Our defenses are failing. Our colonies are burning. We beg for military aid. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The harbingers. A race so nightmarish that even the war-hardened Zalari were pleading for salvation. They were an anomaly, appearing in deep space with no demands, no diplomacy, only pure, unrelenting destruction. Entire fleets had vanished in their wake. Ambassador Kex hesitated. We will convene emergency military assistance. The Galactic Fleet. Grant cut him off. We can end this. Every eye turned to him. Humanity has fought wars like no other species. We understand war not as a means of conquest but of survival. We do what it takes. Send us and we'll stop the harbingers. A collective gasp swept through the chamber. Kex shook his head furiously. The law is absolute. Humanity is not to engage in. A secondary transmission came through. The Zalari warlord, his breath ragged, now looked past the camera. His eyes widened. No. Static. The tribunal chamber fell silent. Then the human admiral chuckled. Your move. The silence in the Grand Tribunal chamber was suffocating. The Zalari warlord's desperate cries still echoed in the minds of every species present. The raw terror in his voice an undeniable testament to the horror unfolding on the other end of that transmission. The harbingers had reached their next target. Ambassador Kex clicked his mandibles in frustration. We must convene immediately to discuss military options, he said, his voice uncertain. Admiral Elias Grant shook his head, his expression unreadable. There's nothing to discuss. Kex turned on him, furious. Human, you will not defy the tribunal's ruling. Galactic law forbids your kind from engaging in war. Grant took a single step forward and for the first time, Kex felt something he hadn't expected, fear. Then you better hope your laws can stop the harbingers, Grant said. Because if they can't and you let this happen, then it won't just be the Zalari screaming next. His words sent a ripple of unease through the chamber. Even the most war-hardened species present, the Threxian battle clans, the Vrol Mindweavers, the Dmari regiments, shifted uncomfortably. None of them had ever faced the harbingers directly. None of them wanted to. For a moment no one spoke. Then another transmission came through. It was short. Only 2 words. They're here. Then static. Kex's eyes darted across the chamber. He had spent his entire life advocating for galactic peace, building a system that ensured large-scale wars would never break out again. That all civilizations, no matter how warlike, would be restrained by law, forced into diplomacy rather than destruction. And now, in the face of an enemy that could not be reasoned with, all those laws suddenly felt meaningless. The weight of reality crashed down on him. We will mobilize the Galactic Fleet, Kex stammered. It will take time, but... Grant's laugh was sharp and humorless. Time? How much time do you think they have? He gestured toward the static-filled hollow feed. Do you think the Zalari colonies will hold out for days? Hours? Or are they already gone? The tribunal members exchanged uneasy glances. Keck straightened, trying to regain control of the conversation. You still cannot be allowed to fight. Humanity's involvement in war is forbidden. You don't have a choice, Grant interrupted. Because we're not asking for permission. A sudden alarm blared through the chamber. The security AI's voice echoed through the hall. Unauthorized fleet deployment detected. Human warships are mobilizing. Kex's mandibles clicked in shock. What? You? Grant activated his personal communicator, speaking calmly. All forces, go. The chamber erupted in chaos. Tribunal members shouted, some demanding immediate military action against the humans, others begging them to stop. The Vsari delegation, Kex's own species, looked at him in panic, waiting for orders. But Kex had no words. The humans had already made their decision. The human fleet breaks the law. Deep in the void, beyond the tribunal's jurisdiction, humanity's warships emerged from their silent vigil. They had been waiting for this moment, prepared for it. Admiral Grant sat on the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, Earth's most advanced warship, staring at the Starlines unraveling as they dropped out of warp. Around them, an entire fleet followed suit, 100 vessels strong. This was no hesitant, diplomatic response. This was an execution. Grant turned to his tactical officer. Give me a battlefield report. The officer's face was grim. Sir, the Zalari fleet is already gone. Only civilian transports remain, and the Harbingers are tearing through them. On the holoscreen, Grant watched in silence. The Harbingers were unlike anything else in the galaxy. No one knew what they were. No one understood why they fought. There were no envoys, no demands, no negotiations. Only death. And now they were slaughtering civilians, helpless Zalari vessels trying to escape, bursting apart under relentless barrages of unknown energy weaponry. Grant's jaw tightened. Target the largest Harbinger vessels. Weapons free. Pause. Then the order echoed across the fleet. All ships engage. The first contact with the Harbingers. The void ignited with light. Human warships roared forward, their engines burning blue as they unleashed the full fury of their arsenals. Railgun slugs, plasma torpedoes, and high-energy lances streaked through space, slamming into the Harbinger fleet with devastating force. The enemy noticed. The Harbingers shifted their formation, their black, insectoid vessels twisting unnaturally as they responded to the unexpected attack. No species had ever struck them with such precision, such overwhelming firepower. For the first time, the Harbingers hesitated. And then they retaliated. A monstrous vessel, larger than any human dreadnought, rotated its jagged frame, its hull glowing with eerie crimson patterns. A beam of unknown energy ripped through space, slicing 2 human frigates in half. The shattered remains spun into the void, their crews lost in an instant. Grant barely flinched. Counteract with gamma disruptor rounds. Target their weapon emitters. The fleet adapted instantly. Human battleships adjusted their firing solutions, unleashing a barrage of experimental rounds designed to disrupt exotic energy sources. The moment the glowing orbs impacted the Harbinger vessel, its weapon systems failed. Then the missile volley struck. A dozen warheads detonated against its hull. For the first time, a Harbinger capital ship exploded. The tribunal had feared what humans could do in war. They had no idea. The turning point. Sir. A comms officer shouted. The Zalari transports, some are still operational. They're hailing us. Grant opened the channel. The image of a terrified Zalari commander flickered to life, his reptilian face etched with disbelief. You came. Grant's voice was cold steel. Get your civilians out of here. We'll cover you. The Zalari commander swallowed hard, then nodded. Understood. And, thank you, human. The transmission cut. Grant turned back to the battle. The Harbingers were adapting. They had never lost ships before. Now they were shifting tactics, focusing fire, maneuvering in unpredictable patterns. They were learning. Good. So would humanity. Bring in the second wave, Grant ordered. Deploy countermeasures and target their propulsion systems. Let's see how they fight when they can't run. Human warships moved like predators, encircling their prey. Fighters weaved between enemy formations, launching EMP strikes to disable key systems. Battleships focused fire on exposed weak points, tearing through Harbinger hulls with relentless precision. It wasn't just overwhelming firepower. It was strategy. It was adaptation. It was war the way only humans understood it, and the Harbingers were losing. The cliffhanger, humanity's true strength. A new transmission interrupted the battle reports. A signal coming from deep in Harbinger-controlled space. The communications officer hesitated. "Sir, you're going to want to see this." The holoscreen shifted. A Harbinger. Not a ship. Not a construct. But something alive. And then it spoke. "We did not know your kind before." The voice was a low alien resonance, inhuman yet precise. "Now we do." The transmission cut out. And suddenly, every remaining Harbinger ship turned and vanished into the void. Retreating. For the first time in recorded history, the Harbingers had fled. Grant exhaled, staring at the empty battlefield. He knew exactly what that message meant. This wasn't over. They'd be back. And next time, they would be ready. The battlefield hung in eerie silence. What moments ago had been a maelstrom of death and destruction was now a graveyard of shattered warships. Zalari transports, their hulls scorched and battered, limped away under human escort, leaving only the smoking remnants of the first true defeat the Harbingers had ever suffered. Admiral Grant's knuckles were white as he gripped the console. The Harbingers had retreated. Retreated. No force in the known galaxy had ever made them do that before. And yet, something was wrong. The words of the transmission echoed in his mind. "We did not know your kind before. Now we do." He turned to his tactical officer. "Get me long-range sensor sweeps. Full deep space scan. I don't like this." The officer's fingers danced across the hollow interface, but before he could finish, alarms blared throughout the ship. Emergency FTL signatures detected. Massive energy surge, enemy reinforcements inbound. Grant's blood ran cold. The Harbingers hadn't fled. They'd gone to get something worse. An unstoppable force. The fabric of space itself ripped open. Not just one portal but hundreds. The cold abyss was swallowed by an unnatural darkness as monolithic shapes emerged, their outlines too vast, too alien for even the most advanced scanners to process. Humanity had just survived a battle against the Harbinger's vanguard. Now they were facing their true fleet. A massive structure materialized at the heart of the formation. It wasn't a ship, it was something else entirely. A black void writhing with unnatural energy, pulsing like a living thing. The data streaming in made no sense. Every scan returned different readings as if reality itself was breaking down around it. Then the Harbingers spoke again. "Now, we begin." The black construct pulsed and suddenly human systems shut down. Every display flickered with static. Every weapon powered down. The lights dimmed as artificial gravity wavered. Every ship in the fleet was left adrift. Grant's heart pounded. What the hell is happening? The chief engineer's voice came through, frantic. "Some kind of interference field. It's rewriting our systems as fast as we can reboot them." "Work faster," Grant snapped. Outside, the Harbingers advanced. Their vessels moved with eerie precision, passing by disabled human warships like predators circling a wounded prey. And then, one by one, the human ships began to vanish. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Simply erased. As if they had never existed. "The last stand begins. Sir." The tactical officer's voice was desperate. "We're losing ships. They're just gone." Grant's mind raced. No explosion. No wreckage. Just disappearance. He took a breath, forcing his voice to steady. "What about our fighters?" The officer hesitated. Smaller crafts seemed to be resisting the effect, but it's only a matter of time before. A heavy impact rocked the Vengeance. The bridge lurched sideways as the ship's structure groaned in protest. The view screen flickered back to life just in time for Grant to see it. The black void at the center of the enemy fleet was expanding. The Vengeance was being pulled in. Reverse thrusters. Fire all available propulsion. Grant barked. "We're at maximum output, sir." "It's not enough." His mind raced. If they were caught in that thing, it was over. Not just for them. For everyone. Then, an idea. How many ships still have partial control? The comms officer hesitated. "A few frigates, but they're barely operational." "Reroute control to the command network. Prepare for remote detonation." Silence. Then, "Sir?" "You heard me." No hesitation. No debate. They had to break free. Grant's voice was steel. "We don't have time for arguments. If that thing swallows us, the battle is over. We detonate the remaining ships inside its gravity well and overload its core." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Thousands of crew members, Their own people would be sacrificed. The comms officer swallowed hard. Sending the order now, sir. Grant exhaled, forcing the guilt down. They had no choice. The last frigates began moving forward, their damaged hulls sparking as they forced themselves into the gravitational pull. Crew members, still alive, sent their final transmissions. Some were prayers. Others were curses. A few were laughter. Grant forced himself to watch. Then he gave the final order. Detonate. The monster bleeds. The explosions were silent in the vacuum of space. But their impact was undeniable. The black void convulsed. Its form flickered, its gravitational hold wavering. The unnatural effect disrupting human systems collapsed. Suddenly the lights came back on. The engines roared to life. The weapons reactivated. Humanity was back. And now it was their turn. Grant didn't hesitate. All ships opened fire. The void still pulsed, still tried to consume, but it was wounded now. Exposed. And humanity had never been merciful. Railguns shredded through the Harbinger fleet. Torpedoes detonated inside their formations. Fighters swarmed over enemy vessels like a plague, exploiting every weakness. And the void? It screamed. The Harbingers had never bled before. Now they did. And they were afraid. The final revelation. Sir, the comms officer called out. The black void, it's transmitting something. The hollow screen flickered. And suddenly, Grant saw something impossible. Not an alien. Not a monster. A human face. Scarred. Eyes black as the abyss. Speaking. We told them not to send you. Grant's blood ran cold. Who are you? The figure didn't blink. We were the first. The first to defy the Council's law. The first to fight. They erased us from history, but we survived. And when the Harbingers came, the hollow image distorted. We made a deal. Grant took a step back. You joined them? A slow nod. And now we offer you the same choice. The battlefield around them was still burning. The Harbingers were losing. But the voice, it carried certainty. You cannot win. The transmission cut out. And suddenly the void began to collapse. Not in defeat. In retreat. The Harbinger fleet vanished, disappearing as suddenly as it had come. The black void imploded, leaving behind only the wreckage of the battle. And humanity? They stood alone in the silent aftermath. But Grant's mind was racing. Because now they knew the truth. The Harbingers weren't just some ancient terror. They had been waiting. And worse, they had once been human. The battlefield was a graveyard of shattered warships and drifting wreckage. But Admiral Grant had no time to dwell on the destruction. The Harbingers were gone. Not defeated. Not destroyed. Gone. And worse, they had left behind the single most horrifying revelation of the war. They had once been human. The bridge was deathly silent, every officer staring at the dark, flickering hollow screen where the scarred man had spoken. Grant turned toward his officers, voice grim. Give me a direct line to high command. Now. The comms officer hesitated. Sir, the Council will. I don't give a damn what the Council thinks, Grant snapped. They knew something. They had to. The officer obeyed, and within seconds the massive screen in front of them lit up with the shadowed figures of the Galactic Council. Their faces, alien, unreadable, yet exuding an unmistakable aura of fear, regarded him in tense silence. Admiral Grant, one of them spoke, his voice carefully controlled. We were expecting your report. Grant clenched his jaw. Cut the bullshit. He took a step forward. You knew, didn't you? About the Harbingers. About what they used to be. Another council member, an insectoid's Thari, clicked its mandibles. It does not matter what they once were. What matters is that they are the enemy now. Like hell it doesn't matter. Grant barked. He slammed a fist against the console. You lied to us. You sent us to fight something we didn't understand. Pause. Then the eldest member of the council, an aged Kvari, sighed heavily. We did not lie, he admitted. We erased the truth. Silence fell over the bridge. Grant exhaled slowly, the weight of those words pressing down on him like a vice. Erased. Not forgotten. Not lost to time. Deliberately buried. Why? The Kvari's tired eyes met his. Because we had no other choice. The true history of the Harbingers. When humanity first emerged, the Kvari began, you were dangerous. Not because of your weapons nor your technology, but because of your will. Your refusal to break. He glanced away as if remembering something painful. There was another war long ago. A war that nearly ended all of us. It was not waged against aliens. It was waged against yourselves. Grant felt his stomach sink. The first generation of interstellar human warriors, the Kvari continued, were too powerful, too relentless. They refused to stop. Even when peace was possible, they would not accept it. They were the embodiment of war itself. His voice lowered. We, the Council, made a decision. We erased them. We outlawed human warfare. We hid the truth and gave humanity a new purpose. One of diplomacy. Of peace. Grant's hands clenched into fists. You didn't erase them. The Kvari nodded solemnly. No. We banished them. A heavy silence settled over the bridge. Then Grant spoke. And they became the harbingers. The Kvari exhaled. Yes. A pit formed in Grant's stomach. The harbingers, this ancient, unstoppable nightmare, where humanity's own past come back to haunt them. And now, the war was no longer just about survival. It was about what kind of species humanity truly was. The harbingers' final move. A new alarm blared. The tactical officer paled. Sir, new energy signatures inbound. They're coming back. Grant whirled. How many? The officer swallowed hard. All of them. Every surviving ship in the fleet turned toward the void as new rifts split open across space. But this time the harbingers weren't attacking. They were waiting. And then a single transmission came through. The scarred man's face reappeared, his black eyes empty as the abyss. You understand now, he said. This war was never about conquest. Grant's breath caught in his throat. This war was a test. The man leaned forward. Will you finish what the Council started? Will you erase us again? The weight of the moment crushed down on Grant's chest. Because he knew he had a choice. The harbingers were beaten, wounded, but not gone. They could be finished here and now. But if he did, he would be repeating the past. The choice that changed everything. Grant took a slow breath. Then he made his decision. No, he said. The bridge crew tensed. The Council members stiffened. Even the scarred man seemed surprised. Grant stepped forward, his voice unyielding. We are not the same people who exiled you. We are not the same warriors who refused to stop. His jaw tightened. And we won't be the ones to repeat their mistakes. Silence. Then the scarred man smiled. A slow, knowing smile, filled with something that was not quite victory, not quite loss. Then you pass. And with that, the Harbinger fleet vanished. For the first time since the war began. Humanity stood alone. And the war was over. The aftermath and the future of humanity. It took weeks to process the damage, months to rebuild, years to understand what had truly happened. The Council tried to bury the truth again. But this time humanity refused. The story of the Harbingers spread. The truth of the war was told. The old laws forbidding human warfare were shattered. Because humanity had proven itself. They had fought an enemy that was once their own. And they had chosen a different path. The final message from the Harbingers remained encrypted, hidden deep within the military archives. A single sentence. A warning. A promise. You have learned mercy. We will return when you forget it. The end. Rocket, if you love this story, don't forget to white heavy checkmark like. It helps more people discover the power of humanity's legend. White heavy checkmark subscribe for more HFY sci-fi and epic storytelling. White heavy checkmark comment. What would you do if the galaxy feared human warriors? Fire want more? Check out our top HFY stories. Fire. Speech balloon, what should be the next HFY story? Drop your ideas below.